The Minecraft Cave. They come in all shapes and sizes and appear all over the infinitely generating world. For builders, they present a unique opportunity, transforming a completely interior space into a work of art. But instead of just keeping a standard Minecraft cave as it is, I thought I would present to you some ideas and inspiration for those of you who don't really care for the world above ground with grand exteriors and instead want to make something epic below the surface. So here are a bunch of ideas for some very unique cave designs. Let's get started. So the first one that I want to show you is still a cave, but it's an underwater cave. So I found this really cool ravine with a shipwreck hanging out of it, and I thought, wow, that was cool. So I chose this particular ravine for an underwater cave. So inside the side of the ravine, I basically just dug out a whole big hole and covered it in andesite, and then decorated it to look like some sort of sunken treasure. Perhaps this build is telling a story of how this ship got wrecked and then dropped its treasure down and it was hidden under here. Now the inspiration for this cave actually comes from Iskall's Hermitcraft 6 base, so you can see a lot of similarities there. I actually chose to put this entire base as andesite rather than stone because this gives a little bit of a different texture. As you can see, we got stalactites from the ceiling, and then we've got some support beams made of wood to kind of match the whole underwater shipwreck theme. Now, because it is underwater, and I am trying to make these caves as survival friendly as possible, maybe not to make, but to use, I've included a conduit with some kind of decoration. It's in its own little cave over there, but of course underwater we can't actually make any decent farms because the water obviously ruins them. So I made like this little room here where you can still see into it, roughly speaking, through some stained glass, and then got all of the farms in its own little pocket here. So you could have your beetroot and your wheat, whatever food that you want to make in here, no problem. And this can be, of course, as big as you need it to be. And I kind of made this thing here so you can swim downwards and then go back in, and you can swim out of the 1x1 tunnel. I really like this design because, as with this ravine, it's quite big. You could make many caves of these along the ravine and link them all up, kind of like Iskall did in his Hermitcraft 6 base. But because of all of the weird generation things, especially the shipwreck here, this build tells a story, and I think that that is really cool in and of itself. But let's move on to the next cave. Icebergs and iceberg biomes are very much a new thing, but just because a cave is not underground doesn't mean it's not a cave. You could turn the inside of one of these icebergs into a cave itself because they're so massive, and with a pickaxe you can get through ice very quickly. With some efficiency pickaxing, it's instant mine, maybe even faster than instant. So you go inside, and what I've done is I've used lots of end rods to look like icicles falling from the ceiling. You've got to be very careful because these end rods will melt normal ice, and I've actually used some normal ice to let some light in because it does go through, and these are like windows without losing the whole iceberg feel. Now, the floor, I've actually had to use some sort of light blue concrete powder because having a floor completely made of ice actually makes it rather difficult to get around. So I've got sort of a pathway going through here with some hidden lights underneath. The whole point of this was to try and keep it as light and blue as possible, with the exception of our chests and stuff. So I've got some storage and some basics here, bit of decoration, and also some snow which I've hand placed in little corners to make it seem like it is actually very cold in here, and it gives it a bit more detail, because detailing an ice cave like this is actually quite difficult. I've made a chandelier made out of some stained glass, and that adds a really nice central effect. And of course we must have some farms, as this is meant to be survival friendly, in its own cave with lots of end rods as lights, and it's actually got some grass in here as well, so you can again make these sort of pockets of caves. It's got some windows out there and you get a really nice feel in here. Over here, what I've done is, because I wanted to add some enchanting rooms to all of these caves, or most of them, Yeah, the bookshelves don't really go well with the ice in terms of colour, so what I did was I just shaped up like a big cavern, and it's like it's broken into an existing chamber. And I've just made it really, really tall with some ladders and some extra detailing, and then you can get all of your level 3 stuff because it's got plenty of the bookshelves around it, and I think it works quite well because of how tall it is. I've also included a nether portal in this one, just hidden amongst the ice, and even a second layer where you can go up and you have an extra layer at the top of the iceberg. Because these icebergs are so massive, you really can utilize the space within it. So that's just another idea for a cave design, and this one is probably the most survival friendly as it is actually above the water level, and it's very, very quick to mine. The only problem is that the end rods will melt the ice around it, so you've got to be careful. There's lots of frustrating water meltage that goes on. But let's move on to the next cave. In these inspiration videos, I do like to include some desert designs. Not many people actually choose to live in the desert, and I must admit this is a very, very small one because it's next to a savanna biome over there and then ice, which is always weird, but this is technically a desert biome. But what I found was this completely natural entrance to a cave with lots and lots of sand overhanging. Now, anyone that plays Minecraft for any amount of time will come across this floating sand, and there's now no way to make this naturally happen as far as I'm aware, but it does happen when you find naturally generated stuff. So I decided to make this cave and try my best not to disturb the sand, and I made it. Don't worry, I think we're going to punch this a bit later on. But what I did was change all of this to smooth sandstone. This was all stone before, to make it completely yellow and make it all desert theme. We have some supports here made of acacia wood, and when you go inside, it is again all textured to be sandstone and slabs and the acacia mixed in as well. We've got farms, so as far as everything else goes, this is a pretty standard cave. It's just a very, very sandy themed one with some like mine carts and stuff, and to make it look more like a mining facility, it's got everything you're going to need with your chests and your furnaces, even a portal around the back here. As far as I'm concerned, this is a pretty standard cave, and maybe down here you have all of your mining access, etc. But it's just the idea of having this acacia mixed in with the smooth sand, but most importantly, not disturbing the sand that's floating. Up here, we've got another room with the enchanting. Again, bookshelves are very, very difficult to make it blend in to any surroundings because they've got bright red, they've got green, yellow, blue, and they're predominantly made of oak. So you've got to kind of try and make its own area for these kinds of things. But it works nonetheless. And I think before we go, and this really pains me to do it because there's no do-overs. Once this is done, this is done. But I think we should maybe just... Oh, and I imagine that will happen many times if you decide to try and build one of these. And yeah, that could be very frustrating. So fortunately for me, all of this sandstone was already here, but if you tried to replace it and you mess up, you could end up with that, and there's no going back. So I imagine that it's very difficult not to end up breaking these. You'll have to just put some sandstone underneath. But let's move on to the next cave now that I've ruined this one. Now, this isn't strictly a cave, so to speak, as it's not really underground, but in Minecraft you do find some very, very strange pieces of terrain, and this is one of them, and it's an extraordinarily steep cliff, and it actually goes all the way round. What I found interesting about this particular bit of terrain is that if you go over the top, there's a hole directly in the middle. So I thought maybe you could create a cave on the inside of this oasis and then transform it to be all nature plus inside. So like there's waterfalls here, there's loads of hand-placed leaves, like all of this has been hand-placed. This was just rock, it was just stone and everything else, but it's had all of the dirt and the grass placed in to make this seem like a true oasis. And the cave has been added around it, then inlaid with a modern house. So the cave was actually built first. It was dug out, and then there was a huge space here, and then the modern house was actually just slotted in so that it overhang and you have a perfect view of all of the nature on the inside. Now, this kind of terrain is quite rare. I don't often come across terrain quite as tall as this with a perfect circle in the middle. And this is just so hidden. If I was traveling through the world, I wouldn't bother going over the top of this. I'd walk straight past this. So this is a pretty decent hidden cave, even though it's above ground. And I think that's why it's so cool, because it's hidden in plain sight. But let's have a look at the actual house and how this is related to the cave. So the overhang here is a nice oval shape, and it's kind of like an Oreo. Now that you sort of see that, it's got the white or the grey stained glass in the middle, and then it's supported with some dark prismarine. It gives this really nice effect, and then it's layered with a bunch of other stuff. So you've got your farm, and then you've got a swimming pool, and then you've got a bit of grass underneath. Those layers then make up the house, but it is still a cave on the inside because the walls are never really completed. You can see there's coal ore available here, and then there's a bit of an aquarium, but there's still the cave for the roof and the ceiling and stuff. It's all part of the overall effect, especially here in the bedroom where all of the walls are made out of cave. And then you just put down the floor and then a bit of the ceiling, but you've still got a sort of very modern base, but it's still set in a cave setting. And I think the overall effect of this one makes it my favourite cave that we've seen so far. So that's another bit of inspiration for you. However, finding the perfect bit of terrain like this is going to be a little bit of a struggle. And another downside of this particular build is the nature part of this, filling this up with all of the cool leaves and stuff, takes just as long as it does to make the actual base. But actually carving out this big hole doesn't take as long as you think. But let's move on to the next cave. So in this video, I really wanted to make sure that I came up with some quirky designs, because I've come up with cave designs before and I've shown how to build caves underground, so I really wanted to come up with some unique inspiration. And as I was traveling around, I saw this floating rock. Now, this does happen very occasionally, especially in this kind of biome. So I thought, why not actually put the cave base inside it and then have a unique way of getting inside? Now, I'm no redstone expert, so all we've got here is a very simple slime launcher, but it does push you straight up into the cave. So yeah, if there's a way to hide this, then by all means do it. I'm sure that there's like a piston extender you could do, but the redstone involved is probably quite crazy. So I've just got a very simple slime launcher. You press it and it pushes you up into the cave. Now, obviously people will see this bit, but as for the cave, this is completely hidden, even on the top, and we'll get to that a bit later on. So as for how hidden this is, it is very much so. But so let's go in and have a look. So this is in the same style as sort of my Hermitcraft Season 6 builds, with the white concrete, the cyan terracotta, and I've tried to fit as much in this small floating boulder as possible. I think this is a really cool design. Now, I have included everything, even if it's on the small side. So we do have our enchanting table with all of the bookshelves that you're going to need, a nether portal that fits in this inverted L shape, and even a farm, which, I'll be honest, it's a little bit on the small side, but you can do these cool lights with the end rods because they really do look like modern lights when you place them like this. Mixed in with some iron trap doors, you've got yourself a really cool looking lab. I've even put in some paintings and then all of the bits and bobs you need, chests and etc, etc. It's not a massive base, but it is compact, it is hidden, and it is still a cave. One of the interesting features of this design is that on the ceiling you actually have glass, but because of the biome it actually snowed on it when it was storming, and it's completely hidden, but the light still goes through it. So there's not really much need for torchlight as such as you would in most caves. But on this one, it's all natural light, which helps a lot when you want to see everything. So yeah, I'm very happy with this design, even if it is very compact. But again, this one does actually rely on you finding a little bit of unique terrain like this. Of course, you could do this design in any singular cave, but I wanted to present something unique, especially with this hidden top and the hidden entrance on the not so hidden entrance into the floating rock. Let's move on to the next cave. This is actually my favourite cave, and we're going to start up here because I want to immediately point out one of the downsides of this. I wanted some natural light in this cave, and you'll see why in a second, but it has got some holes that go all the way down. There's no real entrance to this, but that's not really the inspiration that I want to give you. This is a truly underground cave that takes a long time to dig out, but it does look really cool. Let's hop on down and you'll see this sort of toxic, secret, Lord of the Rings style cave. Now, the inspiration for this one did again come from Iskall, who is a very fond user of this glass trick. Now, if you don't know what this glass trick, let me briefly explain. But this is some stained glass layered on top of each other, and it produces this very misty effect. And if you put some light in it, you get like a glowing, bright green pool, and it's a really, really cool effect. So how you make these is you have to dig a very big hole, and it's actually got to, it's quite difficult, it's very time consuming, but you build a very, very big hole with some light at the bottom and some green carpet or some carpet on the top. You then have a space, and then a bit of glass, then another space, then another layer of glass, then another layer of space, then glass, etc, etc. You need at least 5 or 6 to get the effect, but you can do this up to 10. But you do want that light to come through so you can get this really weird effect. But other than that, this cave is still quite interesting because you've got all the stalactites and stalagmites going from the ceiling and from the floor. And if you stagger them at different heights, and that's why these look cool, they're not all the same level. That's the point. Some are smaller, some are thicker, some are longer, some are even taller here. And they all layer over the top of each other to give this really nice effect. Mixed in with these green pools, and you have a very creepy looking cave. It's actually lit up quite immensely. There's loads of these light grey carpets with some lights underneath. Even the nether portal here, this is giving off a bit of light. I created this big obsidian square and then layered the shape over the top of it to try and hide the obsidian, maybe not that well over here. Like so, and it gives it that really nice shape. I'll put it like that. But it gives it a really nice shape, like it's been carved out of the mountain, and that's very unique. And if these were maybe purple stained glass, this would look even like it matched the whole thing. But even though this cave has been dug out pretty much all by hand, it still has some unique properties. Obviously, you want to try and mix in some andesite and cobblestone into the texture here. That's what makes this look really detailed, even though it's not that detailed. It's got a few slabs here and there, but one of the main things is all the diorite is gone and all of the granite's gone, and then all of the ore is gone as well. If you're making a cave, the biggest tip I can give you is make it all uniform, whether it's stone, sandstone, andesite, whatever it is. You've got to get rid of all the ores and everything else to make it look nice and clean. But where are all of the useful things in here? Well, it's actually behind me. I didn't know how to actually make this cave survival friendly, as the main concept and inspiration is from these creepy green pools and the nether portal and the shape of the cave. You could theoretically do absolutely anything with this cave, but I decided to actually put in some stone brick ruins here to make it seem like this was once something important or a temple of some kind. And then just put the farm and some storage in the shape of shulker boxes, and then your enchanting table here with some books that maybe once looked like a tower to try and make it all fit in. So it's all very, very grey, and I think it does work. It gives me a very Lord of the Rings kind of vibe in this cave, and this one is definitely my favourite one to show you for this episode of Inspiration. But let's move on to the next cave. This is the final cave that I want to show you, and you will realise that a lot of these caves are actually above ground, but put into all of the sides of mountains and stuff, and that's because it actually makes it a lot more useful to make. If you have access to the surface and adventuring and stuff, it actually is quite beneficial for survival. Well, anyway, we've got a path here that goes up to a naturally generated cave here, but it's slightly dug out of this lovely big mesa biome. And you're able to decorate it with lots of plants, ferns, long grass. This actually fits in quite well with the bookshelves and lots of spruce wood here. You got your bedroom. One of the key features of this one is having like these false floors that makes it look like it goes in infinitely deep. You have like the layers of the mesa, and then you go down. You do a bit of the glass trick as well to make it seem like it's all foggy down there. So if you do that trick multiple times, you could even have it so you've got like a bridge going across, again made out of spruce. But you could even put some like rocks underneath, like this cool effect of like a real chasm. Of course, if you do fall down, it's just glass. It's not a big deal. And you can even make some ladders to get out. It's fairly easy to decorate, and this could be very much a starter house, as terracotta's very quick to mine. All of this stuff is inexpensive. It's all made out of wood. It wouldn't take long to make this at all. And then, of course, over here, if you want to connect up from one side of the mesa to the other, you could consider making a big wooden bridge like this one. Doesn't have to be as detailed as this. Again, this is just an inspiration video to try and give you something else to do if you enjoy making cave houses in Minecraft. And over here we have access to our farms. There's like little patches here, here, and here, and then a bit of storage as well. All of this very much survival friendly. And I'm afraid that's it for today's inspiration video. I did have a few more designs, but they didn't quite work out. So maybe in the future I will do more of these inspiration videos to give you some ideas for your kind of Minecraft houses. But what do you like making but are struggling for ideas? Let me know and maybe I'll make an inspiration video on that. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope that you've enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought in the comments below, and goodbye!